Start and hey everyone, welcome to Jet Live. It's CB here. I'm here with Robert Binder. Thank you for joining us today.
Pleasure.
How's it going? How are you doing?
Considering the situation, thank God. Can't
Thank
complain.
God.
Well, I could complain, but you wouldn't want to listen.
Well, that's exactly this. This is not the forum for that. We started this in order to not complain, but to talk about the arts, creativity, and some good news that's happening in our lives right now.
Good.
Robert, Encore has been around for a really long time, and I'm sure you do two shows every year, which is amazing. Really big productions. Really amazing productions. And you were on the way to be doing South Pacific when all
Correct.
this went down. So I'm just going to make sure that I have the video here so I could see if anybody's commenting. But tell me a little bit about that. What was the process like, and how have things changed because of Corona? Or is Encore still? Are you still preparing for the next show? Are you still preparing to do the same show?
Well, we're certainly in a down mode at the moment. We're trying to produce some videos of selections from the show to put out as teasers to remind our public that Encore is still on board. And of course, nobody knows now what the situation will be, when theaters will open, what we'll be able to do. I do hope that by December, in our usual performance time, we'll be able to mount the show then and continue on as we have in the past.
Okay, so you're not planning to do it in any other time period. It's going to be December, which is your usual slot of doing shows. I think
so. I don't know any other time that we'd be able to pull it all together.
Okay, all right. And the rehearsal process was going well?
Thank God, it was great.
Great. Well, Josh Becker is watching with us. Hi, Josh.
Hello, Josh. Woof, woof. I bark because Josh and I were in Charlie Brown together many years ago, and he was Charlie Brown and I was his dog, Snoopy. You're frozen now. CB? There's something wrong. CB, you're frozen. Okay, what'll I do? Hello? You're frozen. Oh, yes, I'm here. Okay. Okay, so good, bye-bye. There you are.
All right.
Okay, you're back.
I'm back. That was a little scare. Technical difficulties. My computer, when it shuts off right away if the battery gets disconnected, and my awesome daughter Leah Rose pulled the plug.
Happens to the best of us.
Happens. Yep. Where were we? So South Pacific, the rehearsals were going well. You're going to be releasing videos of the South Pacific rehearsals, or different?
No, videos that we're making of the soloists and the chorus singing selections from the show.
From the show, okay. And you have a lot of material. You've been Encore's been around since 2006.
Just about, yes.
Just about. So you have a lot of video. I think actually on your YouTube there's a lot of shows that and snippets of shows that people can go and see. Is that correct?
That's true, and I hope we'll also start releasing weekly viewings of our past productions.
Amazing, amazing. That's a lot of the theater companies around the world are doing that. I actually
Exactly.
recently saw the play "What Are We Talking About" by the Public Theater by Richard Nelson, which is all done on Zoom. It was really interesting.
Uh-huh. I'll have to
Are
take a look
you?
at it.
I understand you were working on an original. You've written a few original musicals in the
Yes.
past, and are you continuing to do that?
Certainly, we're working on a new show now that I hope we'll be able to. Actually, we're working on two shows, but one in particular I think is very timely about Theodore Herzl, and I hope we can pull it together.
Are you working more now on the show as
I'm
we
working more, I
are?
have more time now to work on my writing. Yes,
That's amazing.
more
That's
writing, less worrying.
less what?
Less worrying.
Less worrying. That's what we can do. We can write more. You're not worrying about the South Pacific production that was supposed to happen now. You're just being able to focus on the artistic elements
That's
in
correct.
the home.
Mhm.
Great. That's amazing. I'm just going to see if anybody asked any questions, but before that, how's your family doing?
Thank God we're all well. Baruch Hashem.
Very good, very good. I've actually bumped into you a few times. You know, we stayed our distance, but
Yes,
we're all in the same small community, so
in the same neighborhood. Mhm.
the same neighborhood. So that's been really nice for me, and unexpected. I think I've seen you more on the street now during this time than I usually see you. So
Been on the stage, right? Okay.
yeah. So you've been around in the community for a very long time. What's your favorite memory?
Oh, there are many. There are many favorite memories.
Okay, top three.
Well, I think a landmark performance for us was when we did our original opera Intrepid about the Neely Spiring at the Alma Art Center in Zichron Yaakov. That was a fabulous theater, a wonderful group that we assembled, I think a very powerful play that we wrote. And it was very exciting to be performing it on the set, that's at the scene of where the action took place 100 years ago. That was very memorable.
I was actually I was there with Dina. We went to Beit Aronson and around the time when you put up the play,
Mhm.
and it was really fascinating, the history of it all and
Yes,
the amount of work that was put into bringing it all together on the stage. I really was able to understand it much more having seen Intrepid and then going to Beit Aronson.
good,
So really, thank you for that. That was really amazing, and to do it in Zichron Yaakov, yeah, for sure.
very meaningful.
I am trying to get to the page. The computer takes its time loading up again. These technical difficulties don't happen in theater usually, right? Right. Usually it's hunky dory and all fine backstage.
I wouldn't say that, CB. We've had some major crises backstage. I remember
any we can talk about?
Well, I remember particular when we were producing shows with Jest many years ago, and we had a wonderful production of Gilbert and Sullivan's satirical opera Patience. Aviela Trapita, who's always been phenomenal in everything she's done, was singing her principal solo in Act 2 when the fire alarm went off in the theater. And I don't know why, there was not a fire, but it was a piercing screeching siren, and no one could find out how to turn it off. And it went on for about 20 minutes, during which we lost about half our audience. After a few minutes, two of the violinists popped up from the orchestra onto the stage and started playing country music to keep the crowds down. And finally, we got the show back together. But that was just an unreal moment. It reminded me, this is ancient history, but during the Second World War, when the D'Oyly Carte Opera Company was still performing during the German bombing of London, they had a performance of Princess Ida, and the sirens went off. Everyone had to leave the theater, and so they could search for bombs and everything else. And when they finally were able to recommence the performance, the audience came back and they picked up the opera where they had left off, which was at a line where in Princess Ida, Prince Hilarion and his two friends invade, sneak into a women's college, and they're climbing over the wall. And the first line was, gently, gently, evidently, we are safe so far. So the irony of those words coming in after this bomb scare was particularly significant.
Just gonna, can you hear, 1 second.
Is there a problem with the audio?
Okay, I'm just used to seeing it's different from what I've done before now that I'm on my phone.
Okay,
So it's not the split screen, it just shows,
I see.
which is fine. I'm learning as I'm going. I think
No,
we
the
all
split
are.
personality, if that helps.
Oh, really? I think most of us actors, you know, at some point we develop that, bring all the different roles that we play. And
Sure.
you've put on many hats. You've been in all the shows. You've taken on lead roles, on featured roles, on just one song role, and producing and directing and all that. I'm sure. How do you do all that? I mean,
I just do what I have to do, whatever is necessary. I've often told the story that when I was in second grade in public school, my teacher, Mrs. McLaughlin, she should rest in peace, asked me to produce a play in class every Friday. And she would excuse me from class to go to the library, and I would research a topic. For example, if it was Lincoln's birthday coming up, so I would read a biography of Abraham Lincoln, and then write a play and cast it and direct it in class. Usually played a leading role, brought costumes and masks from home. And she didn't tell me to stop, so I've been doing it ever since.
wow. That's really, I think that's something that I think that I'm going to take from this, from our conversation, is that really you just got to do what you got to do. The show must go on, and we need to just do whatever materials we have. I mean, you've had costumes in your home since then. Like you always.
Oh yes.
When did you
very young.
When did you start? You make the costumes, right? You sew.
Yes, that too.
When did you start doing that? Also,
Just
same time.
I think about first grade. I think my first public performance was in kindergarten, where I presented a puppet show of Cinderella to the class. And then I had the same teacher, Mrs. McLaughlin, for first and second grade, and she encouraged me. She saw there was something peculiar in this student, and better get it out at once. So I've been in the theater ever since.
Since kindergarten.
Yeah.
Wow. And you were
I
sewing.
actually made my debut in nursery school because we had a parents' night there were 4 children who were supposed to do a folk dance. I don't remember what the dance was at all, to tell you the truth. But for some reason, one of the 4 children didn't show up. And my teacher asked me if I could substitute. So I went on and performed the dance in place of that kid. So I'm always ready to go on, whatever the part is. You know, you were talking about Josh Becker before. There was a time when Josh was not well during a performance of Iolanthe. And the first time we saw it, I was concerned, and I sort of got half dressed in costume and waited in the wings in case I should have to go on. And the next night I did go on for him, reluctantly, but thank God he was back well for the following performance. But these things happen. What can you do?
Yeah. There's,
People often ask us if we have understudies, and I say yes. I mean, there's some parts that I wouldn't go on stage as, but most of the male roles I can cover somehow, for better or for worse, mainly for worse.
So you are the understudy.
Yes, I'm the understudy.
It's actually a question somebody brought up. I don't remember where I heard it from, but about our community, and it's been a question that a lot of people ask is, can we have understudies? In the concept of community theater, is that you do shows for a certain amount of time, and it's a long rehearsal process. And people always ask that question of, will understudies want to understudy in our community?
There've been a few times when we've had understudies to cover roles. In the community theater, I don't know that it's all that satisfactory, because the understudy has never had the rehearsal time with the other principals and with the director that the principal has. So if they do have to go on, you're usually not going to get the same level of performance. And there have been times where we split a role to give 2 people an equal opportunity, but you know, we have what, 6 performances, 8 performances, whatever it is. To do just half of that, 3 or 4, is not really very satisfying after you've spent 5 or 6 months rehearsing the show. So we generally work without understudies and pray a lot.
And your process of casting, I mean, you have a lot of favorites. I know you talk about Aviella a lot, and it's just amazing the people that you get on your stage. Some of the best performers in Jerusalem.
Well, we've been very, very blessed over the years. We've been blessed with terrific talent. When I first came to Israel in '83, and we formed a small group of Gilbert and Sullivan performers, I never expected that we would be able to put on a full production, because I just didn't see the talent here. But over the years, there's been a tremendous outpouring of talent. Thank God. Hold on, I have to take this call.
Okay.
And I'm just online now. Can I speak to you in a minute? I'll call you back. All right. Bye-bye. And
by the way,
when we select a show, we do not precast. We've never precast, but we do have to have an idea that we can cast the show and know that there's talent out there that's appropriate for the particular show we're doing. I know we did one enormous production a few years ago, and we were really stuck for a male lead. And one of our crew, one of our production team, suggested somebody. It was a long shot. And we went after him, really chased him, and really pushed him against the wall to be in the show. He was terrific. He was excellent in the part. But at one time in the rehearsal, well, I think this particular person wasn't confident that the show was going to come off at a sufficiently professional level. And he couldn't be bothered at that point to learn his lines. And we had a rehearsal, and I said, okay, Rouvain, put down your script, or you'll work without your script. You have to know it by now. And he blew up at me, and he cursed me, and he walked out. And the member of the team who had originally cajoled him into doing it ran after him to placate him and bring him back. He did come back eventually, and in the end, he was satisfied. But where do you go? We have talent, it's true. I don't have such a superfluity of talent that I can say, okay, if we don't have so-and-so, we have so-and-so. It doesn't work that way. So we've been blessed and we've been lucky, and thank God we're still going on.
I think we have amazing talent in this community, and there's always more talent to be found. Encore puts on like 50 kids that are the next generation every single show. It's fascinating, and I've actually seen, like I talked about when I was interviewing the Starcatcher crew. I mentioned Daniel Fox, and I actually remember him being in HMS Pinafore with me.
That's right.
An annoying little, well, he was tall then too, I think. He knew all the lines and everything, and he's grown into a fabulous actor. He's now in the Army, performing.
Yes.
His whole family and the Abelos. I interviewed them. We interviewed them. Rivka Duray and I interviewed them 2 years ago, maybe. The generations that you've been able to establish in the theater is just fascinating. I mean, you've been a mainstay in the community for such a long time. It's just it's just so wonderful to.
I suppose by now I'm the old man of the community theater, but one of our goals with Encore was to encourage young people, to teach them stagecraft, and to make them both the performers of the future and the audience of the future. Because in this country, certainly in Yerushalayim, you don't have a great tradition of theater going or quality of theater. You have visiting companies that come in, and the Khan does some remarkable work. But if you look at children's theater in particular, what I've seen of it has not been very satisfying. And I know I've spent a number of years performing in schools and all kinds of community centers, all kinds of places. It was really a challenge because the young audiences weren't conditioned, weren't trained, educated to view a live show. And in fact, one time we adopted a skit before we began our show. We had a lesson with puppets on how to behave during a performance, what you can or cannot do. You know, when you have a gym full of kids sitting on the floor and they all pull out their sakiot nylon to have their ruchat eser in the middle of the show, or they're talking or pushing or yelling or whatever, and you have to tell them, you know, how to respond to the performance. That goes for the teachers as well. I've had incredible experiences where really the teachers needed training in how to behave and how not to sit on the sides and talk while we're putting on a show in a very difficult space. And on the opposite extreme, we once took a show to London to a number of Jewish schools. And there, in one school in particular, the children were so disciplined. They all walked in rows and had to be given permission to sit down. And when they did, they were absolutely silent. And we had to say, hello, you know, you're allowed to laugh, you can clap, you can enjoy the performance. You don't have to sit there like, what's the plural of sphinx? Sphinxes? Sphinxing?
Sphinx. I don't know.
But thank God we've had the families you mentioned, people you mentioned, people who've grown up with us. And I hope we'll carry the torch for the future, long after I'm gone.
Amen. I think what's interesting in what we're seeing now, I mean, I'm going to be talking about this, hopefully in a blog this week, about the predictions of what theater might look like in the next year. And I had a conversation with Michael Burrell recently also, and I think live streaming or Zoom readings, there's a Zoom reading festival that's going to be happening with Center Stage Israel. They just announced it's going to be May 17th. and they're asking for submissions, 5-minute plays, because no one considered. I watched almost 70-minute play on YouTube, and I had to take a break in the middle. Because I'm doing a lot of different things, but also because it's a lot to sit on Zoom for so long. That's why these interviews are 15, 20 minutes. But the kids now and the theater goers have permission in a way to just listen and just watch and like shut it off or turn it on. It's not the same as live theater at all. And I think that's something that we're all missing. With all the technical issues and the problems backstage, and the kids and the families like eating their food and making noise, it's a very, very special place.
You know, we had, I don't mean to be speaking Lashon Hara, telling tales out of school, but one of our shows, my wife Sharon was, she had helped with makeup. I think she came in at the back of the auditorium to watch the performance, and a mother arrived late and had to fill up her kids, or her bag, with snacks from the Miznon in the lobby of the theater. And when she came into the performance, which had already started, and her seats were down front, Sharon asked her to sit at the back until there'd be a break or she could move down. Of course, she resented this very much, but she seated her 3 or 4 or 5 kids, whatever they were, with her. And then she took out food for each of them. And Sharon said, "I'm sorry, but there's no eating in the theater." And that's the theater's regulation, not just our preference. Not allowed to bring food into the theater for obvious reasons. And she resented that very, very much. And then, of course, she was on her phone. And that drives me nuts, the use of phones during the live performances. That really irritates me, that not just the sound, but the lights going off. And when you're on stage and you see all these lights popping up in the auditorium, and people texting or whatever they're doing, that's really abominable in my eyes. And I think Sharon said to us something about it. "You know, it's really annoying what you're doing." And she said, "Well, you're annoying me." Now, this is someone who's paid good money for tickets for a live show. You know, it just shows you that there's still a lot of work to be done as far as educating the audience. But I want to say one other thing. You know, I'm a Broadway baby from way back. I saw my first Broadway show when I was 5 years old, and I can remember every moment of it. It just made such an impression on me. In fact, it was Peter Pan. This was before Mary Martin's Peter Pan. This is a Peter Pan starring Jean Arthur. The name probably doesn't mean anything to you today, but she was a major film star in the 30s and 40s. Jimmy Stewart.
Oh yeah.
And Boris Karloff.
I did in my conservatory. They do a special thing for the second year students.
Yes.
They learn about a golden age icon from the Hollywood era, and they put on a 5 to 10 minute story about like a vignette of their life. So they research the whole entire year, they read all the books about them, they see their movies, and they take on their personas, which is something that actors need to do in general, and it's something that they really, really delve into that. So we learned a lot about that time period, and
the leads who are outstanding were Jean Arthur as Peter Pan and Boris Karloff as Captain Hook. And I mean, I can picture every scene. And I was in kindergarten, and I came home, and in kindergarten, I made a model of the set that they'd had on the Broadway stage. But what I want to say is, when the orchestra starts, that to me is rejuvenation. That is life. I mean, to hear a Broadway orchestra is really something. And one of the great advantages, tremendous advantage we've had with Encore Productions, and I know it's with Starcatcher also now, and others, I would hope, is the live orchestra. And what our musical director, Paul Salter, does with the music, sometimes creating his own orchestrations by listening to the originals or creating his own is just stupendous. And to attend a live show like that, with the size of cast we have and the sets created by Roxanne Goodkin-Levy, and the costumes and the orchestra especially. I mean, where can you get this? Even when you go to the professional theater today, if you go to Tel Aviv to a musical, chances are there's no orchestra, or they'll have part playback and part a few instruments in some room off stage. You never see them. You never have an opportunity to give them a round of applause, which they deserve, because they're, I don't think most people realize the orchestra players are sitting there through the whole performance. They're on the entire time, whether they're playing or not. They've got to follow what's going on. And it's a tremendous strain, and it's just wonderful. So I'm very proud of what we have, and please God, we should be able to continue doing it.
It really is the orchestra live. When I was trying to put up Song of Solomon, I said I want to have an orchestra, and there's a world of difference between just the piano and a 12-piece orchestra. There's a world of difference. I was lucky enough to be in the pit of Lion King on Broadway, listening to the orchestra. And I went to see the live show like a year later, and I'm like, no, it's not the same. I really had the music. I couldn't see the actors, but I saw them some of the scenes through like slits in the stage. But it was really just listening to music and watching my friend. Though it's more, they have to really be on in the encore shows in the pit. They can be on their phones and no one's going to see them.
That won't work in my show.
They've been doing the shows for like 15 years, some of these people, so they know exactly when they need to come in. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing to see. But yeah, the orchestra is a beautiful thing that Encore has, and Starcatcher also has been putting that together. It's a world of difference. So I think we'll end here. It was such a pleasure to speak with you. I just want to point out that Hink Rothschild said it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Toby Greenwald, Eliakim Kinslinger, Sharon Katz, Daniel Lewin, Richie Mann. I'm sure a lot of more people will see this later. So it was really, really great to see you. I'm going to be with Marty Weisel tonight, who started Jet Venues. And we have a great lineup this week, and through the coming weeks of more people joining from the community, from outside the community. I actually have a really special guest in 2 weeks talking about orchestra. A girl who, I believe she's from Iowa. She studied in Florida, and she went to New York. She studied in NYU, and has orchestrated and composed her own musicals. And she worked with Hamilton, and she's worked with Moulin Rouge, and she's going to be also coming on to Jet Live to speak from New York.
Yeah, tremendous. Great.
So it's great to have you. Thank
you. I'd just like to close by thanking you for this opportunity, and thanking for everybody who has participated in our shows over the years and helped us both on stage, backstage, and in the audience. It's meant a great deal to me in particular to have my dream come true.
Okay, thank you so much, Robert.
Bless the family. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.